It's a beautiful morning here in Appalachia. I'm going to do my first garden tour today. Everything is just beautiful, growing, thriving. We're really pleased with how everything's growing. We don't have everything planted though. We're not pleased with that part, but still lots of exciting things to see in the garden. This little cattle panel behind me here, this is where on the one end we have some grapevines. We planted them about 2 years ago, and until this year they've kind of grew together, so we didn't put anything down below them. Last year we had beans there because they were still so small, but you can see how much growth, lots of growth has happened over the last year for them. And then in the panel right behind me there, that's where we put some greasy beans, and they are just growing by leaps and bounds. They're starting to run. They were actually trying to reach up, one or two of them, getting close to, not actually holding on to taking hold yet to the cattle panel. But we had, with the recent storm that we've had, there was some wind, so they've been blowed back and forth. But I know the sunshine that we're going to get today will really perk them up, and hopefully even by the end of the week, maybe they'll start reaching up and grab a hold of that first cattle panel. This is the crimson watermelons that I got from Betty and Pat at the Satterfields Nursery, and I put them in this grow bag, and they're doing good. You can see they're beginning to vine out, so hopefully I'll get a watermelon from them. We added another layer of dirt to all the raised beds on the bank, but we still haven't managed to put the compost on top of that, so we've not planted anything in the ones that don't already have something in them. But this bed back here, the wood bed, you can see how overgrown it is. That's definitely on my list of things to take care of. It's really weedy, but that's where our blackberries are. And it looks like they're doing really good. All the blackberry canes have berries on them, so it looks like we'll have a lot of blackberries this year. I just need to get the bed cleaned out. The herb bed is just beautiful, full and lush. You can see I already need to cut back a lot of it. There's that beautiful hyssop over there. I didn't manage to get it out and put it in a circular container like I wanted to, which we ended up putting something else in those circular raised beds. So maybe I can do that next year. Lemon balm, the sage is blooming. Everything's looking really great. The orange over in the corner there is the orange balm that I got from Betty and Pat. I can't wait to try it in my kefir water. I got to make some today, so I should remember to come out and get some, put it in there. And then the little plants, the cilantro and basil and things like that I planted, dill, are up and growing. In the corner of the herb bed, I've got fleabane growing. It just come up there. I didn't plant it, and I really should pull it up, but its cheery little blooms are just hard for me to remove. This part of the garden right here is the prettiest part right now to me. I'm just in love with it. The cucumbers are beginning to reach up to that first little hook on the cattle panel so they can start climbing. The onions that we planted are all up and doing wonderful. We've already been eating a few of them. The radishes that we planted are really looking good. Just adds such a richness to that area. And then, because I got to visit Pat and Betty, the wonderful flowers that I've got surrounding the garden right there is so pretty. It just looks like such a healthy, lush part. If I can keep those squash bugs off, maybe it'll continue to be that way. The nasturtiums I planted too are up and growing, so I know I just can't wait for them to start creeping out of the beds. 2 people have told me in the last week or so that they read or heard that you could use pine needles to put around your squash plants or your cucumbers, in my case, if you have a problem with squash bugs. And I'm going to try that. We've got ample pine needles. I can just go up into the woods and find some. I'm going to bring some down. I didn't ask if they should be live or if they could be dead. I think I'll just put some of both. Or maybe I could just cut some pine branches and little limbs and put in there. I guess I could try that, and they'll soon turn brown. Anyway, that's just one more thing to try. And if that worked, that would be the easiest of all, just because I live in a place that's plentiful with pines. I had to replant a little bit of the cucumbers, but they're up, so at least these seeds actually come up. These are the Arkansas Little Leaf. I can see that I've got radishes that, now I'm in the conundrum of, do I pull them up and eat them? Because of course I want to, but if they're supposed to ward off the squash bugs, I guess I could pull them up and eat them, and then I could plant some more. Another chore we've not got done is I want to take all my strawberries from the green stalks and put them in one of the raised beds Matt got me for Christmas. We have it all filled up. I just hadn't had time to move the strawberries. And one reason is they're still producing, so I hate to move them right now. I think though that they will do much better in there. I've just decided that I'm not as happy with the green stalks as I thought I was. I'm gonna give one to Corey. She probably won't be able to use it this year. And then one of them I'm going to put flowers or something in. I don't know what I'll put in it. Maybe something. Maybe I'll grow something else in it. Maybe some herbs or something like that. But the strawberries that have done the best this spring are the ones that I had grow bags sitting beside the green stalks, and as the strawberries put out new runners, they just landed in those grow bags. I think we had potatoes in them last year, and took root, and then those are the ones that have produced the best for us. So that's just something I need to get done. This mess over here is our elderberry bushes, and they did so good last year. It was the first time they had produced. But this year, the very first bad storm we had pushed them back and broke them over, broke a lot of them down, just snapped I guess because they were so tender. So they've grew back out some, but I'm not sure if they'll do as good for us this year. Maybe they will. I see a big poke plant back there in the back. We should have been out here. Anybody that likes poke salad would have been out here eating it earlier in the spring. This is our bed of tomato tomatoes, little small tomatoes, and they're doing really good. You can see this one's even got blooms on it. A couple of the others do. There's one back there that looks like it's dead, and it's my fault. I broke it when I was putting it in the ground. I just left it though because I was hopeful that it might come back out from the bottom. It may or it may not. This sea of green is our potatoes, the ones we have in the grow bags. We have some more over in the ground, and they're doing really great. They have got so tall though that a lot of the storms we've had have just beat them back and forth. These, those that are blooming right there, they were all pushed over yesterday, but overnight they've straightened back up. So hopefully we'll have a good potato harvest. These are Matt's wonderful Cherokee purples that he's so excited about, loves so much. Can't wait for them. I don't see any blooms on them, but they are doing really good, and they've grew quite a bit since we planted them. Our Malabar spinach, it reseeds itself, so it's up and growing. It grows so fast once the heat of summer really gets here that it'll soon reach the trellis. All of our blueberry bushes are just loaded this year, so if I can keep the blue jays off of them, we should have a great year for blueberries. The peppers we planted are doing good too. You can see they have peppers on them. It's kind of cheating. The peppers were actually already on them when we planted them. They'd been growing in the greenhouse. Looks like something's been eating on that one. I probably just need to go ahead and get it off. But hopefully the plants, once they take hold, they'll put out some new blooms. Right there's a little bitty bloom. These are gypsy peppers. We hadn't grown them in many years, but when we used to grow them, we really loved them because they're a sweet pepper. They taste good, but they're so prolific. More blueberries on this bush. This is one Matt got me one year when we worked at the college. And they get ripe earlier than some of our other ones, so hopefully before long we'll be able to enjoy these. Looks like it'll be a good year for grapes too. Our grapevines, more established ones down here, are just covered in grapes. I'm really excited about the grapes on this little vine here. These are Scuppernong grapes. You can see some of them right there growing. It's just covered in them. I only planted this one last year after I discovered that Scuppernongs are my favorite grape. The tomatoes we planted down here are doing really good. Several of them have blooms on them. Now this is usually where we would plant our Mountain Princess and Arkansas Traveler. So it's really strange to us that we didn't plant them this year. They just hadn't been doing very good for us in the last few years. But we're excited about seeing how these do. So we've got the Brandywine we've not grew in years. German Johnson we've not grew in years. The Randy Hooper, I'm calling the one from Debbie, Randy Hooper. and also the hillbilly, and we're just so excited to see how they do. Maybe we'll find a new favorite tomato this year. This is the largest part of our garden. The most, everywhere else is kind of little plots here and little raised beds here. Down here is our largest section. It's pretty big when you think about where it starts on this side, and then it goes all the way down to where our hill starts to go down the driveway. That's where we've got our blueberry bushes down there, and usually we put winter squash down there so they can just run wherever, since it kind of dips over. But this is by far the largest part. So what we have growing here is these cattle panels back here have our beans on it. Now this year what we did was we did one long row of rattlesnake beans. They are so prolific, and we're crazy about them. We love them. On the back cattle panel, we did various different little beans. Some of them come from Debbie from Bryson Farm Supply. We planted what she called the preacher bean, and I've had a lot of people ask me about that one because it's so prolific. The thing about heirloom beans is what one person calls a bean, like for example, just take the beans, somebody else may call it something else. And especially those old varieties that someone, that was the great thing about Bryson Farm Supply there with Debbie and her husband and her parents before that run that store. People would just come in and say, hey, this has been in my family for generations. I want you to have a start of it. I want you to keep it. So then they told her what they called it, and that's what, they wrote down. That's what it would be. So I don't know exactly what bean it is. And the beans that we're doing that come from Debbie, it's not like, now some of them maybe you could, I don't know, but like if you type in preacher bean on the internet and search, you might find a bean that is called that, but it may not be that same bean. Does that make sense? Anyway, eventually maybe we would have enough to share with people. We certainly don't now, and Debbie didn't have enough even to sell. She just shared with people like me that she knew would try to propagate the seed and continue using it for many years. So we have some of those, and we have the butter bean back there. We have a butter bean that someone shared, was kind enough to share with me. We also have a new one that we've never tried before, and we picked it to try it because it had the word mother in it, so that was why we wanted to try it. But they're all up and doing good. Now the butter beans, I had two little places where just for about 2 feet, nothing come up. And so I replanted them, and I was just over there looking. They've still not come up. So I don't know if that seed is old, or if I've just not waited long enough this time, because the rest of it all come up. So either way, I think we'll have some butter beans. But if these don't, I will go back and maybe plant some. I think I have a different little container full of butter beans. I'll plant some of those in there instead of the ones that I've tried to plant twice. We have a couple of other things growing in here. One of them is our long row of cabbage. It looks so good. Matt and Corey planted those while I was in the hospital with Granny, and they did such a good job, and the cabbage are really, really thriving, as you can see. Another thing we have is a row of beets. They're up and they're growing, so I can't complain about that. I've had such a hard time with beets the last few years. They don't look that super, but I'm just going to let them keep growing. You can also see some weeds that need to be weeded out. And then we have one long row of okra, and you can see it's just beginning to grow. Here's another little okra. They're all coming up. All the varieties that we planted are coming up pretty good. This bean is already climbing. Look how far it's climbed up. Isn't that great? Already climbing up. Also, though, I can see something's been eating on the leaves of it. That's not good. This part of the garden is some of our spring stuff. You can see the lettuce there doing really good. That center part is where we've been eating it, and then it's come back up. But you can see I need to harvest some right now even and eat it. Right beside it is our kale, which was doing really great, but you can see something's been eating it. Something's been having a heyday. And then back behind it is the squash and zucchini that I couldn't resist buying from the Satterfields. It's holding on. It's not doing that great, but hopefully it's gonna take hold and really start growing. I know if we get some sunshine, that's gonna help it. And you can see my flowers back there that desperately need to be weeded. That's another thing that's on my list. We've got a couple of onions right there, those large onions. Those are actually what's left from last fall. I need to you can see they're going to seed. I need to just pull them up and use them, cook them up. Next time I need an onion, I need to remember to come get those 3. 3 or 4. There's 4 of them, 4 left. And this little patch of wild, they look wild, they're not wild. We planted them, but green onions. We've been enjoying them, but they are really growing by leaps and bounds too. This part of the garden is really exciting, but really a mess too. Lots of work needs to be done right here. But it's exciting because right here, this row of plants, those are parsnips. I've never managed to grow parsnips, so I'm really, really excited about them. And then the other exciting thing is just the carrots. This will be the 3rd year I mean, these are looking great, so I'm assuming I'm gonna have carrots under there. The 3rd year that I've managed to grow carrots. I'm just still over the moon about that. This part of the garden, you can hear Matt tilling. He's down at the big garden. We'll go down there in a minute. But this part of the garden has nothing planted in it other than our blueberries down there at the bottom. So this is one of the areas that we're behind in. We need to get something planted. We usually put our winter squash here just so that it can run all the way down through there. So we may do that. I'm not sure what we'll do. These are more blueberries that we've got here. These look like they may be the first ones to be ripe. Blueberries and watermelon are my favorite fruit. This is one of the raised beds on the bank that we do have things growing in. See some weeds in there too. I moved some of my Egyptian onions up here because I wanted to get them started where I had them before. Just wasn't very good for them. So looks like I've done a good job. What happens is these will fall over, or those little seeds there, little onion buttons really, they'll fall over, that'll get heavy and fall over, or they'll just fall off, and then they'll start new little onions. You can see right there. And I love to have these because you can use them all winter without even having to think about it. You can just go out and pull them up. But like I said, where I had mine growing, they were just not thriving. So I'm glad that I moved those up here, and it looks like that's gonna work just fine. So in this end is some garlic that we planted last November. And then this bed above it is full of garlic that we planted last November. And I've always wanted to eat the scapes. Is that what they're called? You have to educate me. Y'all tell me about it. Tell me what I need to do, because I think they just snap off and you can eat that part. But I don't know enough about it to actually, I mean, I'm sure I could just eat it and it tastes like garlic, or chop it up and put it in something, but I'm sure there's a good way to use them. So please, in the comments, let me know. And this is one of the raised beds that we managed to get the dirt in. We just need to put another layer of compost in it, and then we'll be ready to plant in it. Matt's been down here since daylight working on getting the corn hoed out. As you can see how far he's made it. Looks really great. The rest of it, though, he's got a ways to go. Everything's looking good, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Awful weedy.
Awful weedy.
That's the first time weeding it, though, so. We get it.
Using Pap's old tiller.
Yeah. That thing's made a lot of laps around this field.
It has. It's good and it's sturdy. It just goes so slow.
Oh, gosh, it's so slow.
Matt's thinking about going and buying one. We've looked and couldn't really find what Matt wanted, and then Corey and Austin found a place in Murphy that has them, so Matt needs to go down there and look and see.
I'm going to. This one does good. I want something that'll beat you to death, but I'm going to get a front time tiller, something I can get this peeled in a decent amount of time.
These are the beans that Matt planted for Corey. They're up and doing good. The cucumbers are not as big as the beans, but they are up, so hopefully they'll grow. You can see how wet our weather has been. You can see how the water's washed down through the garden there. This end of the garden stays really wet, so I planted the other watermelons I got from the Satterfields down here, hoping that somehow that would make them really grow. Well, they don't look like they're growing as good as the ones up there at the house, but maybe they'll take off. But on this one, I do see a bloom, so maybe I shouldn't have spoke so soon. Maybe these will do better down here. So there's a bloom, and it looks like that's about to be a bloom. And the late potatoes that we planted down here are beginning to come up too. I hope you enjoyed seeing how our garden's doing. So much wonderful bounty already. When you think about those spring vegetables, then I think about the beans and the cucumbers and the potatoes and things that we've not even started harvesting yet. Tomatoes. Such an exciting time of the year. There's something really special about each part of the gardening process. When you first put the seeds in and there's nothing, nothing hadn't even come up yet, there's that hope that the ones will sprout. Now sometimes they do really good, like most of my cucumbers, and then there was those 2 panels that just didn't come up at all. But still there's that hope. Then when things start coming up, it's just so rewarding. And this time of the year, I call this the early stage of the garden, I guess, when the tomato plants are just uniform and nice, and the things are like the onions and stuff are just all in a row, and everything looks so neat and ordered. That's really a beautiful time in the garden. But things are not really producing yet, so then you've got that to look forward to when they do start producing. And there's even by the end of the summer when everything's just a chaotic, wild mess, and you're like, why did I plant things so close together, and how did it grow this much in in 2 months or whatever? There's a beauty in that too. It's just being a gardener is an amazing thing. It really speaks to my heart and really fills my heart with joy, which you already know if you watch my videos. You know I'm plumb foolish about it. I really, really enjoy it. There's also a sense of, for me and Matt, this year and last year was a sense of overwhelm and grief because Miss Cindy was dying. This year, happiness that Granny's doing really good right now, but still a sense of overwhelm that there's so many things that, like those places we've not planted, the bed, like the blackberry bed, and my flowers that desperately need to be cleaned up and weeded, and probably the priority though is those places that have not been planted. Anyway, but so it kind of makes you feel like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I can't get it all done. But it's just another thing that gardening can teach you, is that you have to kind of be patient, and you have to take the ups and the downs, just like in life, as things come. Like my cucumbers not coming up, or my peppers this year that I planted inside, they all died. None of them grew, and I had to buy peppers for the first time in a long time. So things like that just happen, and you just kind of have to roll with the punches, as they say. And I'm an optimistic person, so I like to look on the positive side, which is this beautiful growth. Even though, we've not got no peas planted yet, and we've got no winter squash planted yet, still always good to look on the positive side of things. And gardening just gives a prime example of that every way you look at it at each point during the growing season. Hope you enjoyed walking around with me, and I hope that you'll come back and you'll get to be with me and Matt when we eat our first ear of corn from that beautiful big garden. That's one of the most rewarding things this year, is that we've revived Pap's garden, and that's something we're really looking forward to. But also I hope you'll continue just to see the progress that we make this year in all of our garden areas. I'm always glad when you stop by to help me celebrate Appalachia.